Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're fortunate to have such a great lineup today. We have Sharesies, Approval Max, and Spotlight Reporting, and we're going to take you behind the scenes to talk about Sharesies, their tech stack, how it's helping with their growth, the way their finance team runs, and why they're using tools like Approval Max and Spotlight Reporting. So welcome, everyone. Let's kick off with some intros to get started. I'd like to introduce Hannah Korner. She's the corporate accountant at Sharesies. And Hannah, thanks so much for joining us. Please tell us about Sharesies and what you do in your role.
Amazing. Thanks, Kylie. Thanks for having me. I am a corporate accountant, part of the finance team at Sharesies. I guess, who are Sharesies? If you are tuning in from New Zealand, chances are you've heard of our signature. You've seen our signature pink and pineapple branding, but we are a fintech company operating a wealth development platform in New Zealand and Australia. The platform makes it easy for New Zealand and Australian investors to buy and sell shares in companies and funds across across New Zealand, Australia, and the US. Kind of our mission is to give someone with $5 the same investment opportunities as someone with 5 million. We want to support people's finance and investing knowledge, and not only stop there. We want to support and grow people's knowledge on all things money. And yeah, as you know, our investors have access to podcasts, webinars, heaps of written content, as well as an engaged user community and things.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. It's been so amazing to step back and watch the rise of Sharesies over the years. So thank you again for joining us. I'm really looking forward to diving in. And now I'd like to introduce Danelle Whaanga. Danelle is also a good friend of mine. And yeah, Danelle, you please tell us about yourself and what you do at Spotlight Reporting.
Thanks, Kylie. And yeah, great to join you on the call today, Hannah. And can I just say a big thanks to you and to Sharesies for allowing, particularly my children with their $5 in pocket money, to learn some very good life lessons with the rise and falls and some resilience, shall we say. But my name is Danelle Whaanga. For those of you who don't know me, I am the CXO, the Chief Experience Officer here at Spotlight Reporting. Spotlight Reporting, we provide business intelligence solutions largely for accountants and commercial entities as well, so financial advisors. So everything from one-page dashboards, management and board reports, which we'll talk to Hannah about, as well as cash flow forecasting, and obviously consolidated reports covering multi-currency as well. So yeah, delighted to be along today. Thanks for having us, Kylie.
No worries. Thank you again. And great. So that just leaves me. I'm your host today. I'm Kylie Wing. I'm the CMO at Approval Max, and our tool automates your entire approval process. So you'll hear all about it when Hannah explains how she is using it across Sharesies. Right. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our agenda. We have a couple of polls today, and then there are 3 chapters in the main section of this webinar. And we'll wrap things up with a Q&A session. So please ask your questions as we go, and we'll sort them out at the end. And then stick around as well, because we have a special Sharesies promo code offer for you at the end, just to sweeten things up. Great, we'll move on now. We're going to kick things off with a poll. This poll is on challenges, and this is relevant because we're going to talk to Hannah about some of the challenges that her finance team have faced. And these challenges, they might be similar challenges that you're going through as a finance team yourself, or maybe your clients are going through. So I'll bring the poll up now. Please keep in mind it's multiple choice, and I'll just let you work through those questions. Good, I can see answers are coming in. We'll give it 5 more seconds. Fantastic. Wow, I can really see some big issues here. All of them are quite even, but there is one that stands out in particular. It's reporting for board meetings takes far too long. Okay, great. I'll end that poll now, but thank you very much for your input. We will summarize those and we'll put them in the follow-up email so that you can see how everyone answered. Fantastic. Let's move to the next slide. Let's keep moving then. Okay, now let's move on to chapter 1 of this session. So this is about the finance team at Sharesies. I really want to know more about your team, Hannah, and I'm sure everyone else does as well, but I'd like you to tell us, how's your team made up at Sharesies, your finance team, and what are your goals?
Yeah, great question. I guess, a little context. We are a super small finance team. It's myself, senior project accountant, 2 amazing part-timers who look after our payroll and our payables, our financial controller, and we report to a sort of a chief finance and operations officer, the whole team reporting to Sonia Williams, who's one of our 3 EOs and a co-founder. I guess in total, operationally, we're about 6 people, FTE equivalent 5. As a finance team, we are super focused on being agile and delivering a self-service support function that brings value to the business. And it really aligns well with one of our sort of internal company values, which is like chase for remarkable.
Fantastic, fantastic. I love that value. And look, I can just show you here. Look, we have this lovely picture of your finance team on the right. And then we've got this photo of your wider New Zealand team at Sharesies. I believe that was taken about a year ago. The team's probably even bigger now. But while we're on this subject of team growth, what are some interesting curveballs or challenges that you've faced as a finance team, since you've started growing and getting bigger?
Yeah, and I think to answer this question, you need to take into account the growth that Sharesies has had overall. We experienced incredibly rapid growth during sort of 2020 and 2021. Our investor base, grew, it was phenomenally, and our platform actually went strength to strength with the product offerings we had. We launched USX, ASX, and a whole heap of other features, and added a whole heap of companies to our platform, right? So I guess this means that our finance processes needed to be able to grow and actually keep up with the business, efficiencies being the key factor to enable that. And so with that in mind, we thought our finance team, we needed to automate and be able to scale. It's not actually adding people, it's actually using tools and solution that we use to help us bring value to the company efficiency, which is exactly kind of what Approval Max and Spotlight do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have this great quote from you actually, and you just touched on it a little bit before about what your focus is, and it's all about delivering value. And Danelle, I'm keen to get your approach on this as well, because I know you're all about delivering value. But Hannah, first of all, let's start with you. Give us more examples, like take us through how your team can add more value and how you can give back to the wider company just based on tools and solutions. I mean, we're talking time, but what else?
I think, it could sort of simply boil down to, at the end of the day, you kind of want computers doing computer work, and you want your people doing like value add interesting tasks, right? It also, from that, you also empower your people. I think if you can strip out as many repetitive tasks as, say, chasing approvals for invoices and things like that, then you can use that person's time to do more ad hoc project work, analysis, business partnering, and all that more interesting work, but also it's much more value add to the wider business.
Yeah. You've got an exceptionally small team, I'd have to say, Hannah, with the growth, obviously, that the company has experienced and the size of the operation that you're currently dealing with. How have the tools and solutions enabled you to keep your headcount, I guess, as minimal and as focused as what you've been able to?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an awesome question. And I think from say an approval max point of view, I think the AP process as a whole of accounts payable is a like really important process, but it's only like generally interesting once. So the work can be pretty repetitive, week on week. So I think implementing, say, approval max probably has saved us, one FTE, or at least one part-timer, if not FTE at the size we are. And then obviously we found efficiencies in terms of the work Spotlight does for us in terms of manual consolidation processes and data accuracy and so forth.
Great. And now let's jump back a couple of years. Take us back to 2020. So we've been talking, I know that was a really, really big year for you at Sharesies and your finance team. You're growing, scaling, everything was happening exponentially. So how important was your team's contribution at this stage, and why all of a sudden do tools and solution? I mean, why do they all matter all of a sudden when you're at that stage?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a really nice example of that is think about our accounts payable process. We used to obtain sort of manual sign off for all invoices, either via email, or we had one of our co-founders actually involved in the AP process and kind of scrutinizing every expense, right? And this works relatively well when you're processing around 300 to 400 invoices per year. But for example, now we process over 300 invoices per month, right? So you can kind of understand that we need to scale fast. And I guess using Approval Max, we were able to take a pretty painful invoice approval process and transform it into an easy and actually an easy workflow that was airtight in terms of our delegated financial authority. And it was also a workflow that was flexible, that we could change, as administration if needed.
Wonderful. Well, we're going right into this section now. So let's move into chapter 1 of the chapter 2, beg your pardon, of the webinar now, effective spend control and smart AP processes. So on the Approval Max side, while you're talking about all these things, please, if you're listening, if you're attending this webinar and you're thinking you have a client or you have your own finance team, and you just know some of these manual things need changing, please listen out to everything Hannah's saying. There may be some things that can resonate here, and you may want to start taking some notes and then working out an action plan at the end. Same for when we get to the Spotlight reporting section as well. But while we're here, let's talk more about, Hannah, let's talk more about spend control. Okay, let's talk about AP processes. And I want to know specifically, 1, what's your view on these things? And 2, how do you even go about implementing them?
I think having spend control and building a robust AP process is crucial, right? I think 1 for me is from almost an accountability perspective, and then from a business controls perspective. And then I think overall, any solution you implement needs to be scalable, 1, thinking about the growth of Sharesies, but it also needs to be easy to use by people external to the finance team, right? I think for effective spend control and AP processes, you need to be able to decentralize tasks without losing any of the important controls or oversight that you'd have if only one person from the finance team was working from this stuff, right? I guess we've used Approval Max, configuring the workflow to our own DFA, Delegated Financial Authority, noting that it's so easy to modify for any person, if any personnel changes or any sort of reporting line changes, or if someone goes on parental leave, you can actually do that within a matter of minutes. And then Approval Max actually works alongside Xero. Any invoices entered into Xero are automatically sent to the configured approver via Approval Max, and then once they are approved, they appear in Xero's bills to pay. A really cool feature is I think you have to turn it on, but once it's been approved and it appears in Xero's sort of bills to pay section, there's actually a PDF audit report attached saying who was the approver of this invoice and on what date. And that's really handy at year end when you have auditors on site. Yeah, and I guess the final point is also for the approvers. Say I was, an ELT member who had X percentage or X number of say I was head of marketing, and I had 10 invoices to approve that related to marketing spend. And noting in the workflow, you can configure it by spend, by GL code. It's really it's almost limitless in terms of how you can configure it. For the approval, so I'm head of marketing, it's a really super easy sign off. That mobile app and web app is clean and user friendly. You can there's a big approval button. I think there's even a PDF copy of the original invoice in that. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I know that the mobile approval feature is just super handy. I personally use it myself because I'm approving things from a marketing perspective as well. And it's just so easy, like, sitting on your couch at night, and it sounds so sad, but you've got your phone and you see a notification. It's one touch and then another touch and it's approved. So I'd like to now talk about the user experience, because let's go back to a few years before you even had Approval Max, and if you're doing all these things manually, trying to get people to email their approval, getting people to sign things in the office, that's not a thing anymore. People work from home or in different countries. How different is it? I mean, we're talking chalk and cheese. What are we talking?
Yeah, I reckon so different. And I think it's more like fulfilling to, if you're breaking up, instead of one person, say our co-founder, or who had almost complete oversight and had actually to a point that it got to a point where almost too many invoices, right, where you're not really registering the spend really anymore. I think this way, using Approval Max, you can implement your DFA and like break up the approving to the relevant business area, right? And that person is going to be much more interested in that spend and going to query it, right? Because they know exactly what it relates to. Things.
Yeah, absolutely. No surprises. That's one of the great things.
Yeah. And not too much in terms of those manual sign-offs that it becomes almost irrelevant, right? Like if someone gets a huge list, are they scrutinizing every single spend? I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, I guess the great thing about making sure that spend control measures are in place, making sure that your AP process is rock solid. I mean, all of this is the pre-work to making sure that the data is right, that everything that's being paid has been approved for, that it's legitimate. So that when we move on to this next slide, chapter 3 of our webinar today, we know that if it's all done in that pre-step, we know that when it comes time to doing the reporting, getting the insights, the analysis, we're feeling confident, right? We've done all the good pre-work and we can now move into next level reporting. So Danelle, I'm going to hand over to you now to take us into chapter 3 of the webinar and get you to ask Hannah some really good questions for our listeners.
Awesome. Thanks, Kylie. I appreciate that. And I do note, just looking at the poll, that I think, Hannah, probably some of your journey and certainly where Sharesies has come from will resonate with listeners, given the polls kind of suggested that some of the more pertinent issues facing those attending and listening today is that the board reporting is taking too long, and that it is a very manual process and perhaps a little error-ridden as well. So for the benefit of our listeners and to assure them that they are not alone, certainly in their experience to date. Again, let's just talk about, what, when you came on board with Sharesies, what did that process look like from an insights and a board reporting perspective?
Yeah, great question. I have to sort of cast back a little bit, but from memory, it was, again, it was one of those processes. I think when I joined Sharesies, I was like the second member, kind of operational member of the finance team. So I think it was a horrible sheet that you exported zero reports into, and then had to reconcile back. So I think a lot of the time that we spent was actually on getting the data, the financials accurate, right? Where you're exporting and importing, and you make any changes in your accounting system and suddenly they're not reflected in your in progress board report pack. You can imagine.
Absolutely. I should have mentioned too, actually, at the start, for those of you who don't know, I was an accountant in practice too. So we can certainly mention the dirty little Excel word amongst friends, notably often our biggest competitor. And as accountants, we can all love its place in our worlds, in our lives. But I think, to your point, so often when you are preparing, even a simple journal change, one change, and then you have to re-export. And if you haven't updated that value in 3 places, then all of a sudden when you go to present or you prepare, only 2 out of the 3 have been changed, and the accuracy of that data, which decisions need to be based on, really comes into question. So obviously the rise of Spotlight reporting into the Sharesies suite of tools, and I come back to that slide that Kylie put up initially, how you add value to the company effectively and efficiently. Can you share what the 2022 version of board reporting at Sharesies looks like?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we use Spotlight reporting.
Amazing.
I think it's like, it's just really I can't stress enough how much easier it's made our consolidation process. And the 2022 version of Sharesies also has a few more entities, right? So it also gets more complex. And like, there's this lovely button in Spotlight, and it's the import all button. And so you have to make sort of later adjustment. You do that in Xero, you press the import all, and it basically all the data gets imported from Xero into Spotlight, and then that feeds into you can sort of preset report templates. So we obviously have a preset template because for consistency, and our board looks at the same thing every month as well. So I think it's the accuracy, the ease of updating the data for real time, and having that reflected in your board pack or any reporting you're doing. And I think there's sort of a nice link between the timeliness of data and the accuracy of data, right? From a finance function perspective, where we generally report on a point in time, but things are always changing. Accurate data actually needs to be obtained quickly. There's not that much point of data if it's accurate but no longer relevant. And as we are a fast-growing business and where things are always changing, the need for timely, accurate data is even greater.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we've talked about board reporting and using Spotlight for board packs across multiple entities. And so what sort of timeframes in a month would your current board pack take you, for our listeners out there? I think were you measuring it in minutes rather than hours, Hannah?
Oh, yeah. Right down to the minute. I would say we do. I think the Spotlight reporting and using this consolidation tool and having basically those report templates and things, it frees us up to instead spend that time on in-depth, analysis and commentary. And that's, I think definitely there's time savings in terms of, I think probably hours, right? We've all been there where something doesn't reconcile back to an accounting system, and it's a one formula error or a formatting thing. So I think that is phenomenal, but we tend to use that time just to, provide more robust, useful commentary to our board, so they can make more informed business decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we were talking offline and sort of, 3 or 4 hours a month previously, and you're worrying about the integrity of the data, the accuracy of the data, to now our lovely import all button, which speeds it up. The information can be there within 10 minutes across your entities. And as you say, you can spend the time for the insights. And so obviously you're board reporting on a monthly and a frequently basis, but you also talked about using, because the accuracy and the timeliness is so key, that you're also using Spotlight throughout a month because of that consolidation piece, to look at some of the key areas in your business.
Definitely. Yeah. And so, yeah, obviously we have beautiful board pack with monthly reports, but we found it, it's actually really handy from a day-to-day point of view. So, any point in the month, I essentially just import all into Spotlight to give a basically month to date spend on, maybe our bigger expense areas, which is just also so handy, kind of having that real-time live data, if we need it, to make more informed decisions day to day.
And you can get that across the group, obviously, as well, whereas it's not just that one entity.
Yeah.
And so I guess that pulls into, how's Spotlight setting you up for growth, and as we go to 2023 and beyond, how does that allow the business to continue to grow and that finance team to continue to grow in a very agile manner, so that there is not extra, expensive humans who are hard to find at the moment, obviously, but that you can remain nimble, yet still deliver that value and be effective and efficient to the company?
Yeah, and I think if you do, that's a great point. It's the same with Approval Max as well. Like if you do have a new entity you need to consolidate in, like Spotlight, it's so easy, right? You link the new entity via Xero to Spotlight. I think customize it once. So customize the imported data in terms of the header or area, and then you can apply an existing reporting template, or I suppose with all the time you save, create a new one, and you're set, right? It makes, consolidating in a new entity so easy, and that is invaluable as we grow and scale.
Absolutely. So I think, hearing timeliness, not only of data, but also the time savings as well, and being able to resource really good data with less, humans that are able to actually contribute. As you say, I love that quote, getting computers to do computer work and those humans to provide the value. And also I know we've talked offline around having that confidence that the data you're giving is got good integrity, it's accurate, you're not transposing or formatting issues. Even sometimes just an extra line in your chart of accounts can break links. So you've got really good data that's going to the board or those who need it on a timely basis to make those decisions. So full power to the Sharesies team. Thanks, Kylie.
Thanks, Danelle. Thank you, Hannah. Right, we will move to the next part of the webinar. It's time for Q&A. And I've got one question I can see that has come in. So this is a question for you, Hannah. Hannah, I am fascinated to hear this. I'm a Sharesies customer. I'm from a mid-sized business based in Auckland, and we are also growing a lot in the last year. Some of our manual processes are slow. E.g., some decision makers can take weeks to approve anything, which has become a source of frustration for my finance team. At what stage did you realize or know that you needed to change the way your approval function worked so that it was less frustrating for your team?
Yeah, no, a great question. And
someone sounds very frustrated.
Yeah, no, definitely very frustrating. And it's almost like a size thing, but it's a volume, right? For us, it became clear from the volume of invoices we were, receiving, and that we needed to implement a solution. I think it's like you always at the end of the day, you might always have to chase someone to jump into Approval Max and maybe, go through their list of approvals. But it's an easy process for them. So I really like that I think I've said it, the usability for the end user for Approval Max is awesome. And then, how do you know it's time? I think, when you don't really have, the various heads of business areas like are no longer engaged in, I think, their spend to a degree, right? That they don't really know what's being spent or have no interest because there's too much in terms of approving. We sort of we went through a process of, I guess, creating a really robust DFA and having the board sign up on that. And then we thought, how are we going to implement this? And that's when we started looking for solutions to, I guess, implement it easy.
Great.
Hannah, just for those from a reporting perspective, and as I say, Excel has its place in all of our lives often as accountants. And we see it time and time again at Spotlight reporting, people saying, I wish I had done this earlier. I wish I had done this sooner. Not only the time that it's freed up, but the insights I can glean, the additional information I can include in my reports, including that non-financial information. To accountants who are sitting there, and perhaps the Excel model is okay for now. It might take a bit long, but it's perhaps not quite painful enough yet to change, and they have got their trusty spreadsheet set up. What would you say to those accountants?
I'd say jump in. I feel like sometimes with these solutions, there's never an optimal time. You can't predict everything. And if you do you never know what happens in a business, if you're gonna, what way it will go. And so I think any finance team, right, in the world we live in today, we need to think about automation and being agile, and implementing like these sorts of tools is just, it's just adding to your toolkit. And I think it really does, like, if you can automate repetitive processes, which is maybe updating, even if you've got a really good template, say, even if you save, think about it per month, per year, per 2 years, that's just a repetitive task doing again and again. And it's not really value add to the business. And really, it's not that exciting for yourself, right? I think that's how I think about it.
Yeah. There's a few more questions coming in, I can see. Kylie, we got time for a couple more?
Yes, we do.
Okay, Hannah, have you used Spotlight reporting for SaaS metrics as well as traditional financial, e.g. MRR, LTV? I think the pricing structure for Sharesies changes from being part of subscription base. So I think that would depend on if you measure these at all.
We only really use it for traditional financial data. We do kind of import more non-financial metrics in that we use to help color the commentary, but no.
Good, thank you. And yes, I can see some more questions coming in here, but we're going to answer these directly because they're quite specific. So thank you to everyone who has put a question in. You will get a response from our team. I can see some responses happening now, so that's awesome. But yes, if you have any, you're also welcome to get in touch with Spotlight Reporting and Approval Max through our traditional channels, and we will help you in that way as well. Now, the next poll is coming up. Let's just see a show of hands, because this is all about, we talked about adding value before. So now let's talk about how Approval Max and Spotlight potentially can help you and solve some of those challenges that Hannah touched on before. There were so many of them, and take you to the next level. I'll leave this one up for 10 more seconds. I can still see some people answering, so I'll give it 5 more seconds. Great. Okay, thank you. I'll end that poll now. Thank you to everyone who's answered that. Awesome. Okay. Let's get back to finishing the rest of our webinar. Now, it is so easy to start a trial. Sometimes when you go on these webinars, you hear about the challenges, you put your hand up and say, I've got the same challenge. I know I need to make a start, and I know I need to do something differently if we're going to go to stage 2. I always talk about, in business, or if you're in an accounting team or whatever team you're part of, it's always like a big game of snakes and ladders. You've got to keep moving up and up. And so the good thing with SaaS products is that you can always do these free trials. At approvalmax.com, you can easily go through and start a trial there. We have a 14-day free trial. And Danelle, I'll get you to comment on how easy it is to start a trial at Spotlight Reporting.
Absolutely, very similar. So head along to spotlightreporting.com and you will be able to start your 28-day trial of Spotlight as well. Import your own data, set up your company, and you'll have full functionality. And there is a wealth of resources available there as well, from live training sessions that you can join to get yourself up to speed and really make the most of your trial experience.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danelle. And we are going to close off with a very lovely offer that the kind team at Sharesies have given us to all these listeners on this webinar today. We have 2 promo codes for you to use, and they're 2 separate ones, not together. So you can either use Approval Max or you can use Spotlight. Hannah, talk us through this offer, how it works and when it ends.
Yeah, no, awesome. Approval Max and Spotlight, all in caps. So if you sign up to Sharesies and use either of those codes, you will receive a free $10. It is for new investors only, and the promo code can be applied during the sign-up process. I think it's in the first page, kind of at the bottom. It's very clear, little promo code box. And then once sign-up is complete, a $10 credit will be applied to your Sharesies account. I believe those codes are valid for the next month too.
Fantastic. Okay, make sure you diarise that, people.
Very generous.
1 month. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so now that brings us to the end of our webinar. Let's talk about just some closing remarks. Hannah, let's go to you first. Do you have any closing comments or things that you really want to stress and highlight for the listeners today?
I think it comes at that I think you really encompassed it with the question. It was, at what time do you look to update your processes? And I think, in today's market, just in terms of hiring great people, but also that it's ever changing, you want to automate repetitive processes and free your people up to do more value add and more interesting work, because I think they go hand in hand in terms of, the value you're going to get from that person and the value they're going to provide to that business.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Danelle, any closing comments from you?
Look, I just, thank you to Hannah for sharing your insights and sharing your journey. I think in the day and age we live in, time is so hotly sought after, but not only time, we need good data available to us, virtually at the end of our arms on our mobile devices or wherever it may be. So the ability to make good decisions in our businesses is absolutely key now more than ever, and particularly as we face those challenging times ahead. So having, really timely, good, strong data available that we can make those decisions on is going to lead to better business outcomes for our own businesses and advisors everywhere. So thanks for your time. Thank you for your generous offer. And thanks for having us, Approval Max and Kylie.
Thank you. Well, my closing comments of a similar nature, I would say, for anyone who's been on the webinar today, if you have written notes and you're thinking, oh yes, this is me, this is our decision makers to a T, we know that it's manual, we know that it could be better, right down from, the pre-part where you've got to do all your approvals, the whole AP process, and then jumping into the insights, the analytics, the reporting. If you know you need to step back and take a look, please listen to what Hannah said. There's some really strong points there where I think you need to take your team through an exercise. And especially this time of year is great because we're on the lead up to Christmas. We have so many weeks until the year ends. You can't start a new year with a new plan if you don't plan now. So my feedback and closing comments is make it about action. Make sure you have a 1, 2, 3 step plan to help your team move and don't suffer from those same things if you know that they've been causing you friction, like that first question about the frustration. It's all about closing with action and making sure you can take your team to the next level, like what Hannah has done and some of the examples that she's given us today to think about. They've been really valuable. The other thing I'd like to emphasize is that just a few weeks ago, Spotlight Reporting and Approval Max, they also did another webinar, and it may be valuable for some of the listeners today who have clients or themselves, they're a business and they have a very demanding board. This was a webinar about how to really wow your board with spend control in place, but also on the reporting side, how to tell a really great story. We can send that link to you as well, so you can follow up and take some insights from there. Why not? But yeah, those would be my closing comments. Right, so thank you again, Hannah. Thank you again, Danelle. Don't forget about the promo code, the $10 credit that you can get added to your Sharesies wallet when you sign up. Don't forget that you're always welcome to start a trial of Approval Max and Spotlight Reporting. And we will send you a copy of this recording so you can rewatch it should you want to share that with your team. Hope everyone's found it a valuable session. Thank you for joining us. And like I said, action. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Bye.
all.
Thanks all.